It's good to see you here. Grab something warm, settle in, let the noise outside fade for a while. Tonight's story is different. It's real. It's documented. And it's never been told the way we're about to tell it. If you're new here, welcome. To Anti-Logic Blood Opera, we explore the stories that don't fit the cases that slip through the cracks of history. The phenomena that refuse to be explained. If this is your first time, consider subscribing. Not because I'm asking, but because if you're listening to this, you're already the kind of person who wonders what's behind the wall when the house goes quiet. Alright, lights dimmed, heart steady, let's begin. The sound began as a knock, not wood on wood, not pipe on pipe, a dry, hollow impact that seemed to originate inside the plaster itself. 12-year-old Teresa lay still beneath her thin wool blanket, eyes fixed on the water stain blooming across the ceiling. The room was cold. It had been cold for weeks, despite the electric heater humming in the corner. The knock came again. 3 sharp strikes, directly above her pillow. She held her breath. The house was asleep. Her parents down the hall. Her 5 siblings scattered across the cramped terraced property on the Andover estate. Silence pressed against the thin walls like a physical weight. Then the wall answered. It started near the skirting board. A single tap, clean, deliberate. Teresa's pulse jumped against her ribs. She pulled the blanket tighter. The tap repeated. Then another, and another. Not random, rhythmic, counting. She didn't know how she knew, but the pattern felt intentional, a language waiting to be deciphered. She sat up slowly. The floorboards groaned under her bare feet. She pressed her ear to the cold wallpaper. Plaster felt damp. The tapping shifted. It moved with her, always 3 inches from her skin. She traced the vibration with her fingertips. The wall trembled, not from wind, not from settling timber. Something inside was pushing back. She whispered into the dark, "Who's there?" The response was immediate. 1 sharp rap, then another, a pause, 2 more, then 3. The sequence repeated. She didn't understand codes. She didn't know about alphabet systems or spiritualist traditions. She only knew the sound was waiting for her to listen. She closed her eyes, counted silently. 1, 2, 3. The wall knocked back 5 times, then stopped. The air grew heavier. The heater's hum died. The room temperature dropped so fast. Her breath plumed in the dark. She pressed her palms flat against the plaster. The vibration traveled up her arms, settling deep in her chest. It wasn't hostile. Not yet. It was patient, observant. Learning her dot down the hall, a door creaked. Footsteps padded across linoleum. Her mother's voice muffled through the wall. "Teresa, you awake, love? Keep it down." Teresa didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat had closed around the words. The tapping resumed, slower now, methodical. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. She repeated the sequence aloud. The wall answered. Exactly. She tried a new pattern. 4 taps. The wall hesitated, then matched it. Perfectly. She felt a cold flush of recognition. This wasn't settling. This wasn't imagination. Something was in the structure of the house. Listening, responding, waiting for her to ask. She swallowed. "What do you want?" Silence. Then a long, drawn-out scrape across the plaster, like a fingernail dragging down drywall. The sound stopped near the doorframe. The air shifted. The smell of wet chalk and old copper filled the room. Teresa backed away until her legs hit the bed frame. She gripped the wooden posts. Her knuckles whitened. The scraping turned into raps again. Faster, now, urgent. A series of rapid strikes that echoed through the floorboards, vibrating up through her soles. She covered her ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't entering through the air. It was traveling through the bones, through the foundation, through the earth beneath the house. "Stop," she whispered. "Please." The rapping ceased instantly. The silence that followed was heavier than before, oppressive, complete. Teresa stood frozen, waiting for it to return. Minutes passed, her breathing slowed. The heater clicked back on. The room warmed by a fraction. She exhaled, stepped toward the bed, pulled the blanket up to her chin, closed her eyes. 3 taps, right against her mattress. She screamed. The door burst open. Her mother stood in the hallway, silhouette sharp against the dim landing light. "Teresa, what in God's name?" "It's in the wall," Teresa gasped, pointing a trembling finger at the plaster. "It's talking. It's counting." Her mother, stepped inside, frowning. She placed a hand against the wall where Teresa had pointed. Talking? Teresa, it's just the pipes. The estate's heating system is ancient. It expands, it contracts, it makes noises. She tapped the wall with her knuckles. A dull, solid thud. See? Just plaster and brick. Nothing there. Teresa shook. Her head. It answered me. It counted. Her mother sighed, rubbing her temples. You're overtired. School's been stressful. Go back to sleep. I'll check the radiator. She turned to leave, then paused. Her brow furrowed. She pressed both palms. Flat against the wall. That's odd. What? Teresa whispered. It's warm. Her mother pulled her hands back quickly, wiping her palms on her nightdress, and slightly, soft, like it's sweating. She backed toward the door, eyes wide. Right, I'll call the council. Tomorrow about the dam. Get some sleep. The door clicked shut. The lock turned. Teresa sat alone in the dark. The heater hummed. The radiator ticked. The house settled. And then from directly beneath her mattress, a single tap echoed through the bed frame. Then another. Then a third. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. She just listened as the rhythm shifted, slower, clearer, deliberate. A sequence that felt less like a question and more like a name waiting to be spelled. She pressed her ear to the wood. The raps came faster, grouped in clusters. 1 tap, pause, 5 taps, pause, 1 tap, pause, 5 taps. She repeated the numbers in her head. 1, 5, 1, 5, A-E-A-E. The letters formed in her mind, without her permission. Her breath hitched, the tapping changed. 3 taps, pause, 9 taps, pause, 18 taps, CIR. She didn't know why she knew the alphabet code. She didn't know how it worked. She only knew the wall was spelling something out, waiting for her to finish it. Eric, she whispered. The rap stopped. The air grew still. Then, from the ceiling directly above her bed, a single heavy thud shook the plaster dust loose. It fell in a fine gray cloud across her pillow. She didn't wipe it away. She just stared at the water stain, now cracked in a jagged line that perfectly mirrored the shape of a mouth. The house held its breath. And from the walls, the floor, the ceiling, the voiceless answer came. 1 tap. Yes. Morning brought no relief. The kitchen table was crowded with cereal bowls and damp wool coats. Her father read the paper. Her siblings argued over toast. The heater rattled in the corner. Normalcy, carefully constructed, fragile as glass. Teresa sat quietly, tracing. The rim of her mug, her fingers still vibrated. A faint residual hum that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She kept her eyes down. She didn't mention the name. She didn't mention the tapping. She just listened as the house breathed around her at 8:14 a.m. While her father poured tea, the wall behind the sideboard answered. 3 sharp raps, clear, unmistakable. Her father froze. The kettle whistled. The steam curled into the cold air. He set the pot down slowly. Did you hear that? He asked, voice tight. Hear what? Her mother said, wiping crumbs from the counter. The wall. It knocked. He stepped closer, pressed his knuckles against the plaster. A dull thud. Hello? Called out, half joking, half afraid. Is someone there? 5 rapid strikes right beside his hand. He jerked back, knocking his chair against the linoleum. His mother turned. The room went dead silent. Even the younger children stopped chewing. The tapping didn't stop. It moved, traveling across the wall like footsteps, pausing at the window, then the doorframe, then the ceiling. It mapped the room, testing boundaries, measuring space. Then it stopped. Directly behind Teresa's chair. Her. Father's face paled. He looked at her. Teresa, is this you? She shook her head, her throat closed. The air grew thick. The radiator stopped hissing. The clock on the wall ticked backward. She felt it before she heard it. A deep, resonant vibration rising through the floorboards, up her legs, into her spine. It wasn't sound. It was pressure, physical, tangible, like standing near a massive engine. The plaster trembled. A crack spiderwebbed across the ceiling. Dust drifted down like snow dot. Then the code began. Slower, clearer, intentional. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 5 taps. R. 3 taps. C. 3 taps. C. 3. T. A. P. S. C. 23 taps. We. 19 taps. S. 20 taps. T. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 4 taps. D. 20 taps. T. E. IRCCCWESTEIDT. Her father blinked. His lips moved. Eric. Waters. The rapping stopped. The pressure lifted. The radiator hissed back to life. The clock resumed its forward march. The kitchen felt ordinary again, except for the dust on the table, the cold in the air, and the name hanging between them like a dropped blade. Her mother gripped the edge of the counter. "Who is Eric Waters?" She whispered. No one answered. Because no one knew, but the wall did, and it was only getting started. The name hung in the kitchen like smoke. Eric Waters. Her father repeated it under his breath, testing the weight of it. The syllables felt foreign, unfamiliar. He pulled the phone from the wall mount, fingers trembling slightly as he dialed. "Information. Records office, please." He waited, cleared his throat. "Yes, hello. I'm looking for burial records. Andover area. Name, Eric Waters, any time period." He listened, nodded, wrote something on the back of an envelope. "Thank you." He hung up. Turned to his wife. "No record, not in Andover, not in Hampshire. Not in any parish register they could access." Her mother's face tightened. "Then who did we just speak to?" No one answered. The question didn't expect one. Teresa stayed seated, her hands flat on the table. The residual vibration in her fingertips had intensified. A low, constant hum that matched the rhythm of her pulse. She could feel it in her teeth, in her jaw, in the base of her skull. The entity wasn't gone. It was waiting, watching, learning the shape of their fear. School was canceled that day. Not officially. No call from the headmaster. No note sent home. The decision was silent, collective. The younger children sensed the tension. They played. Quietly in the living room, building towers from wooden blocks, whispering instead of shouting. The house felt smaller, the walls closer. Every creak of the floorboards, every shift of the heating pipes, every distant footstep from the estate outside carried an extra layer of meaning. A potential signal, a possible response. At 11:37 a.m., the rapping started again. Not from the kitchen wall, from the living room, behind the sofa. 3 sharp strikes, then a pause, then 5, then 1, then 5. AE, the same sequence from Teresa's bedroom. It was calling her. She stood. Her legs felt heavy, as if the air itself had thickened. Around them, she walked slowly toward the living room doorway. Her parents followed a few steps behind, not touching her, not speaking, just present. A silent perimeter. The rapping continued, steady, patient, waiting. She entered the room. The sofa faced the cold fireplace. The carpet was worn thin in the center. The curtains were drawn against the gray afternoon light. The tapping came from the wall directly behind the cushions. She approached, stopped an arm's length away. The vibration was stronger here, tangible. She could feel it in her sternum, in her throat. "Eric?" She whispered. 5 taps. "Yes. What do you want?" A long pause. Then a new sequence, slower, more deliberate. Each rap spaced evenly, distinct. 5 taps, E 9 taps, I 3 taps, C 5 taps, E 4 taps, D E I C E D. Eric, Ed, Edward. The letters didn't form a complete word. Not yet. Teresa frowned. "Eric, Ed?" The wall answered immediately. 3 rapid strikes. No. Then a correction. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 3 taps. C. Eric. Just Eric. "Where are you?" Teresa asked. The response was instantaneous. Not a code, not a sequence. A single, heavy thud that shook the entire wall. Plaster dust drifted from the ceiling. A crack widened near the window frame. The sound didn't come from behind the plaster. It came from inside it, from within the structure itself, as if something were pressing outward, testing the boundaries of its confinement. Her father stepped forward. "Eric, if you can hear me, if you're whoever you are, we need to understand. Are you buried here, under the house?" Silence. Then a series of rapid raps, too fast to count, too chaotic to decode. Frustration, impatience. The wall vibrated visibly. A hairline fracture spread across the surface, branching like lightning. The air temperature dropped. Her breath plumed. Her mother pulled the younger children closer, then, clear and deliberate. The code resumed. 18 taps, R5 taps, E. 4 taps, DRED. Teresa's brow furrowed. "Red? What does that mean?" The wall didn't answer. Not with raps. with sound. A low guttural hum began to emanate from the plaster. Not a vibration, a tone, deep, resonant, unnatural. It filled the room, pressed against their eardrums, settled in their chests. The younger children began to cry. Not loudly, softly, helplessly, as if the sound itself carried sorrow. Her father raised his voice over the hum. "Eric, if you're trying to tell us something, make it clearer." The tone shifted, sharpened, became a whistle. High, piercing, needle-thin. It drilled into their skulls. Teresa clapped her hands over her ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't entering through the air. It was traveling through bone, through tissue, directly into the brain. She saw flashes, not images, sensations, cold, pressure, darkness, a weight, a promise. Name. Eric. The whistle stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. Teresa lowered her hands. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred at the edges. She blinked, focused. The wall behind the sofa had changed. The plaster wasn't just cracked anymore. It was stained. A dark, viscous fluid seeped from the fracture lines, thick, slow, glinting in the dim light. It smelled of wet earth, of old iron, of something metallic and organic mixed. Her mother gasped. That's not water." Her father stepped closer, reached out, stopped himself. "Don't touch it." The fluid continued to seep, dripping onto the carpet, leaving dark spots that spread like ink. The wrapping started again, soft now, gentle, almost tender. 1 tap, pause. 5 taps, pause. 1 tap, pause. 5 taps. AE. It was soothing, reassuring, as if apologizing for the intensity, as if asking for patience. Teresa felt it then. Not fear, not anymore. Curiosity, a pull, a need to understand. She stepped closer to the wall, ignored her parents' whispered warnings, ignored the cold, ignored the smell. She pressed her palm, flat against the stained plaster. The fluid was warm, not body warm, warmer, like blood fresh from a vein. It pulsed against her skin, in time with the wrapping, in time with her heartbeat. She felt a connection, a thread, thin, fragile, real. The wall wasn't a barrier, it was a membrane, and something was on the other side, waiting, watching, wanting. "Show me," she whispered. The wrapping stopped. The fluid stopped seeping. The room held its breath. Then, from directly beneath her palm, the plaster softened, not melted, not crumbled, softened, like clay, like flesh. Her fingers sank slightly into the surface. Not through, not entirely, but enough. Enough to feel what lay beneath. Cold, pressure, darkness, and a shape. Not a body, not a skeleton. Something else. Something wrapped, something bound. Something that had been waiting for a long time. For her. She pulled her hand back quickly. The plaster hardened instantly. The fluid receded. The stains faded. The wall looked normal again, except for the crack. And the memory. And the knowledge. Eric wasn't buried under the house. Eric was in. The house. In the walls. In the structure. In the space between the bricks. And he was awake. That evening, the first prediction came. The family sat in the kitchen. Dinner untouched. The younger children finally asleep. The older ones pretending to read. The parents speaking in hushed tones about calling the priest, about contacting the council, about moving. Temporary accommodation. Anything. Teresa sat quietly, her palm still tingling, still warm, still connected. At 7:42 p.m. the wrapping started. Not from a wall, from the table, directly beneath her plate. 3 sharp strikes, then a pause, then a new sequence. Slower, clearer, intentional. 4 taps. D. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 4 taps. D. I. Teresa. Sprethcott. Who? Who's dead? The rapping continued. Faster now. Urgent. 20-3 taps. W. 5 taps. E. 4 taps. D. 5 taps. E. 19 taps. S. 4 taps. D. 5 taps. E. Wednesday. Wednesday. Wednesday? Her father asked, leaning forward. What about Wednesday? The wall answered from the corner. 3 rapid strikes. Yes. Then a final sequence. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 3 taps. C. Eric. Eric. Wednesday. Dead. The message hung in the air, incomplete, ominous, unfinished. Her mother stood abruptly, That's enough. We're not playing this game. Teresa, bed. Now. Teresa didn't move. But now. She stood, walked to the doorway, paused, looked back at the table, at the wall, at the space where the rapping had originated. The air shimmered, just slightly, just for a moment, like heat haze on a summer road. Except the room was cold dot, and in that shimmer, she saw it. A shaped dot, tall, thin, wrapped in something that looked like burlap soaked in mud. No face, just a hollow where features should be. And in that hollow, a single point of light, cold, blue. Hungry dot, it raised a hand, not to threaten, to beckon. Then it was gone. The shimmer faded. The room returned to normal, except for the cold. And the knowledge, Wednesday, 2 days away. Teresa went to bed, didn't sleep, lay still, listened. The house breathed around her, the radiator ticked, the wind whispered against the window, and beneath it all, faint but constant, the vibration, the hum, the presence. Eric was waiting, and Wednesday was coming. Wednesday arrived gray and heavy. The sky pressed down on the Andover estate like a damp wool blanket. No rain, just the promise of it. The air smelled of wet concrete and distant smoke. Teresa woke before dawn, not to an alarm, not to noise, to silence. The house was too quiet. The radiator wasn't ticking. The wind wasn't whispering. Even the distant traffic on the A303 had vanished. As if the world outside had paused, waiting. She lay still, eyes open, staring at the water stain. On the ceiling, it had changed overnight. The crack that mirrored a mouth was wider now, deeper. And the shape had shifted. It wasn't just a mouth anymore. It was a face, faint, suggestive, but unmistakable. Eyes, nose, mouth, all formed from the branching fractures in the plaster. All. Looking down at her dot, the rapping started at 6:03 a.m. Not from the wall, from the bed frame, directly beneath her. 3 sharp strikes, then a pause, then 5, then 1, then 5, AE, the same sequence, the same call. But the vibration was different, stronger, more urgent, less patient. Teresa sat up. The sheets slid from her shoulders. The room was cold, colder than before. Her breath plumed in thick, clouds that lingered in the air longer than they should. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her bare feet touched the floorboards. They were icy, not just cold, frozen. She could feel the frost forming between her toes. "Eric," she whispered. 5 taps. "Yes." "Is it today?" A long pause. Then a single, heavy thud that shook the entire bed. The frame groaned. The mattress shifted. The plaster. Dust drifted from the ceiling in a fine gray cloud. "Yes." She stood, walked to the window, pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. The estate was empty. No cars. No pedestrians. No birds in the sky. Just stillness. And fog. Thick. Low. Rolling between the terraced houses like a living thing. It pressed against the glass, obscured the view, made the world outside feel distant, unreal. A knock at her door. Soft, hesitant. "Teresa, you awake, love?" Her mother's voice, muffled, nervous. Teresa didn't answer. She just watched the fog, watched it swirl, watched it thicken, watched it press closer. The door opened anyway. Her mother stepped inside, wrapped in a thick cardigan, hair pulled back, eyes tired, worried. She took one look at Teresa's face, at the window, at the frost forming on the interior glass. And she understood. It's today, isn't it? Teresa nodded till her mother's breath hitched. She stepped closer, placed a hand on Teresa's shoulder. Her fingers were cold. "We're not letting anything happen to you. Do you understand? No matter what. No matter what it says. No matter what it does. We're keeping you safe." Teresa wanted to believe her. She tried. But the vibration in her fingertips told a different story. The hum in her bones, the pull in her chest. Eric wasn't asking anymore. He was calling, and she couldn't ignore it. Downstairs, the phone rang. Her mother froze. That's the priest. They had called him the night before. Father Michael, a young curate from the parish church on London Road, willing to visit, willing to listen, willing to help. They hadn't told him everything, just that there were strange noises. Unexplained phenomena. A child who was frightened. He had agreed to come. At 9 a.m. The ringing stopped, then started again. insistent, urgent. Her mother hurried out. Teresa followed a few steps behind. They descended the narrow stairs. The hallway felt narrower than before, the walls closer, the ceiling lower, the air thicker. Each breath required effort. Each step felt heavier. Her father stood by the phone, receiver in hand, face pale. He's not coming. What? Her mother's voice cracked. Why? He said. He said he felt something on the line. When he answered, a presence, a pressure. He said he couldn't come. He said we should leave immediately. Silence. Then the rapping started. Not from a wall, not from the floor, from the phone itself, still in her father's hand. 3 sharp strikes against the plastic casing, then 5, then 1, then 5. A, E, Eric. Her father dropped the phone. It clattered against the linoleum. The receiver swung on its cord, tapped against the base, once, twice, then stopped. The fog outside pressed against the windows. Thicker now, opaque. It obscured the view completely, made the house feel isolated, sealed, cut off from the world. Teresa felt it then. The pull, stronger, insistent, not in her mind, in her body, in her muscles, in her bones. A physical force, drawing her toward the living room, toward the wall behind the sofa, toward the stain, toward the crack, toward the shape in the plaster. She walked, not because she chose to, because she had to. Her parents followed, not touching her, not stopping. Her, just present, a silent perimeter, a fragile shield. The living room door stood open. The sofa faced the cold fireplace. The curtains were drawn. The air was still, cold, heavy. The rapping started again, from the wall, behind the sofa. 3 sharp strikes, then a pause, then a new sequence. Slower, clearer, intentional. 5 taps. E, 9 taps. I, 3 taps. C. Eric. Show yourself, Teresa whispered. The wall answered, not with raps, with movement. The plaster behind the sofa began to bulge, not crack, not crumble, bulge, as if something were pressing outward from within, slowly, deliberately, testing the limits of the material. The surface stretched, thinned, became translucent just for a moment. Just enough. Teresa saw it. A shape. Tall, thin, wrapped in something that looked like burlap soaked in mud. No face, just a hollow where features should be. And in that hollow, a single point of light, cold, blue. Hungry. It pressed closer. The plaster stretched further, thinned more, became almost transparent. Then it stopped. The bulge receded. The plaster returned to normal. The shape vanished, but the message was clear. Eric was there. In the wall, in the house, in the space between. And he was ready. Her father stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. Eric, if you can hear me, if you're trying to communicate, we need proof, something we can show, something we can understand. Silence, then a new sequence, faster, more complex. 5 taps, E9 taps, I 3 taps, C 5 taps, E 4 taps, D. Eric, Ed. Eric Ed? Teresa asked. Is that your full name? 3 rapid strikes. No. Then a correction. 5 taps. E 9 taps. I 3 taps. C 5 taps. E 4 taps. D 5 taps. E 19 taps. S. Eric. Eads. Eric Eads? Her father repeated. Is that it? 5 taps? Yes. Eric Eads. Her father pulled a notebook from his pocket, flipped to a blank page, wrote the name down, underlined it twice. Eric Eads. Okay, we have a name. Now what? The wall answered immediately, not with raps. With sound, a low, guttural hum began to emanate from the plaster. Deep, resonant, unnatural. It filled the room, pressed against their eardrums, settled in their chests. The younger children, who had followed silently from the kitchen, began to cry, softly, helplessly, as if the sound itself carried sorrow. Then the hum shifted, sharpened, became a whistle, high, piercing, needle-thin. It drilled into their skulls. Teresa clapped her hands over her ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't entering through the air. It was traveling through bone, through tissue, directly into the brain. She saw flashes, not images. Sensations.cold.pressure.darkness.a. Wait, a promise, a name. Eric Eads. The whistle stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. Teresa lowered her hands. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred at the edges. She blinked, focused. The wall behind the sofa had changed. The plaster wasn't just stained anymore. It was wet, thick. Viscous fluid seeped from the fracture lines. Dark, glinting, smelling of wet earth and old iron. It dripped onto the carpet, leaving spots that spread like ink. And in the center of the stain, a shape began to form. Not a face, not a body, a symbol, carved into the plaster from the inside out. Deep, deliberate, unmistakable. A circle, with a single vertical line through the center. An ancient mark, a sigil, a warning. Her father stepped closer. What does that mean? The wall answered. Not with raps, not with sound, with movement. The fluid receded, the stain faded. The symbol vanished. And the plaster cracked. Not a hairline fracture, a deep, jagged split that ran from ceiling to floor. Wide, enough to see through. Dark enough to hide anything. Teresa stepped forward, ignored her parents' whispered warnings, ignored the cold, ignored the smell. She pressed her palm flat against the edge of the crack. The air inside was cold, colder than the room, colder than the frost, colder than anything she had ever felt. And it was moving. Breathing. Waiting. She pulled her hand back quickly. The crack sealed itself. Not with plaster, with something else, something dark, something wet, something that pulsed. The rapping started again. Soft now. Gentle. Almost tender. One tap, pause. 5 taps. Pause. 1 tap. Pause. 5 taps. A, E, A, E. Eric, he was apologizing for the intensity, for the fear, for the crack. But the apology didn't matter, because the message was clear. Wednesday wasn't about a prediction. It was about a promise. And the promise was this. Eric Eads was no longer in the wall. He was in the room. He was in the house. He was in the space between. And he was no longer asking. He was taking. The attempt to leave began at 10:14 a.m. Her father packed a single duffel bag, coats, documents. Her mother gathered the younger children, bundling them into damp wool coats and mismatched scarves. No one spoke. The silence in the hallway was absolute. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. They reached the front door. Her father turned the deadbolt, pulled the handle. It didn't move. He turned it again. Nothing. The lock was frozen, not with ice, with pressure, as if something massive had wedged itself against the other side. He braced his shoulder against the wood, pushed. The frame groaned. The wood splintered slightly, but the door remained sealed. Her mother tried the back door. Same result. The kitchen window wouldn't slide. The living room sash was stuck. Every exit was locked, not by keys, by force. By presence. Teresa stood in the center of the hallway. Her fingers trembled. The vibration in her palms had intensified into a low, constant thrum. It traveled up her arms, settled in her chest, pulsed against her ribs. She didn't need to look at the walls to know he was watching. She could feel him, in the floorboards, in the ceiling, in the space between the bricks. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was waiting, testing, proving he could hold them. The rapping started from the stairwell. 3 sharp strikes, then 5, then 1, then 5. A, E, but the rhythm was wrong. Faster, agitated, less patient. Then came the sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, descending the stairs. Not on the treads, in the walls. A muffled, rhythmic thumping that traveled through the plaster like a heartbeat. Each step vibrated the floor beneath her feet. Each impact dropped the temperature another degree. Her breath plumed. Her mother pulled the children closer. Her father stood frozen, hand still on the door handle, eyes wide with dawning horror. Eric, Teresa whispered, let us go. As the footsteps stopped, the air grew still. Then, from the ceiling directly above her, a single heavy drop fell. It struck the floorboards between her bare toes, dark, viscous, glinting in the dim light. It smelled of wet earth, of old copper, of something organic and ancient. She didn't step back. She stared at it. It didn't spread. It held its shape. Perfectly round, like a bead, then it cracked, not from cold, from pressure. A thin line split down the center. And from within that line, a voice emerged, not through the air, through the floor, through the wood, through her bones. Not yet. Words weren't spoken. They were felt, implanted, direct, unavoidable. Her father staggered back from the door. His mother covered the children's ears. Teresa didn't move. The drop cracked further, split in half, and from the center rose a shape, not smoke, not vapor, a distortion, a ripple in the air itself. It stretched upward, thin, tall, wrapped in something that looked like burlap soaked in mud. No face, just a hollow where a feature should be. And in that hollow, a single point of light. Cold, blue, hungry. It didn't move. It just stood there, in the middle of the hallway, between them and the stairs, blocking the path, blocking the exits, blocking everything. Then the violence began. Not with objects flying, not with doors slamming, with sound. A low resonant frequency erupted from the walls. Not loud, not sharp, deep, heavy. It vibrated through the floor, up through the soles of their shoes, into their knees, their spines, their skulls. It wasn't painful, not at first. It was disorienting. It scrambled equilibrium. It made vision blur. It made breathing difficult. The younger children dropped to their knees, crying, clutching their heads. Her father fell against the wall, slid down to the floor, gasping. Her mother tried to stand, couldn't. Her legs wouldn't obey. The frequency shifted, sharpened, became a high, piercing tone that drilled into the inner ear. Teresa covered her face, pressed her palms against her temples. It didn't help. The sound wasn't entering through the air. It was traveling through bone, through fluid, directly into the brain. She saw flashes, not images. Memories that weren't hers. A field, a storm, a fall, a burial, a promise, a name. Eric, not a ghost, not a spirit. Something else. Something that lived in the structure, in the earth, in the space where sound and pressure met. Something that had been waiting for. A voice. For a listener. For her. The tone stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. Teresa lowered her hands. Her ears rang. Her vision cleared slowly. The hallway was empty. The shape was gone. The drop on the floor had dried into a dark, crusty stain. But the walls were changed. The plaster was cracked, not in random patterns, in lines, deliberate, geometric, forming a grid, like a cage, like a map, like a boundary drawn from the inside out. Her father pushed himself upright, voice trembling. We need help, not a priest, not the council. Someone who understands this. Someone who documents. Her mother nodded, tears streaming. Who? The university, the research group, the ones who study this. He reached for the phone on the hallway table, lifted the receiver, and dialed a number from memory. A contact he'd read about in a newspaper clipping months ago. A parapsychology archive, a team that investigated anomalies. He waited, cleared his throat, spoke quickly, urgent, gave the address, described the phenomena, emphasized the intelligence, the predictions, the physical marks, the name Eric. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. We'll be there by afternoon. Do not touch the walls. Do not isolate the child. Record everything. We'll bring equipment. The line went dead. Her father hung up. Turned to his family. They're coming. We just have to wait. The waiting was worse than the fear. Hours passed. The clock on the wall ticked backward, then forward, then stopped. The temperature fluctuated, dropped 10 degrees, rose 5, dropped. Again. The air smelled of ozone, of wet stone, of something metallic and old. The younger children sat quietly on the stairs, wrapped in blankets, eyes wide. The older one stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, shoulders tense. Her mother paced. Her father watched the window, watched the fog, watched the empty street. Teresa sat on the floor, back against the hallway wall, palms flat on the floorboards, feeling the vibration, constant, low, steady, not hostile, not yet, patient, observant, learning the shape of their endurance. At 3:17 p.m. The doorbell rang. Sharp, clear, real. Her father opened it. 2 men stood on the porch, coats damp from fog, carrying heavy cases, tripods, reel-to-reel recorders, magnetometers. One was older, graying, calm eyes. The other was younger, sharp, focused, professional. They stepped inside, nodded, introduced themselves, not as priests, not as skeptics, as investigators. Show us, the older one said. Teresa stood, walked to the living room, stopped in front of the wall behind the sofa, placed her hands flat against the plaster, closed her eyes. The rapping started immediately. 3 sharp strikes, clear, unmistakable. The investigators exchanged glances, set up the recorders, placed magnetometers on the floor, unspooled audio tape. The younger man pressed his palms against the wall beside her hands, frowned. "I feel it," he said quietly. "Not sound, pressure, vibration. Frequency matches nothing in standard acoustics. It's structured." The older man leaned in. "Eric, can you hear us?" 5 taps. "Yes." "Are you trapped here?" 3 taps. "No." "Do you mean harm?" 2 taps. "No." "Then what do you want?" A pause, then a new sequence, slower, clearer, intentional. 5 taps. E, 9 taps. I, 3 taps. C, 5 taps. E, 4 taps. D, 5 taps. E, 19 taps. S, 18 taps. R. Eric Eads. The older man nodded slowly, wrote it down. "Eric, thank you. We're here to listen," the wall answered. "Not with raps, with movement." The plaster behind the sofa began to bulge, slowly, deliberately, testing the limits. The surface stretched, thinned, became translucent. Just for a moment, just enough, the shape appeared again, tall, thin, wrapped in burlap, soaked in mud. No face, just a hollow. And in that hollow a single point of light, cold, blue, hungry. It pressed closer. The plaster stretched further, thinned more, became almost transparent. Then it stopped. The bulge receded. The plaster returned to normal. The shape vanished. But the message was clear. Eric wasn't asking anymore. He was showing, and what he was showing wasn't a ghost. It was a mirror. The mirror wasn't glass. It was the wall itself. The plaster behind the sofa didn't reflect light. It absorbed it. The investigators' flashlight beams dimmed as they swept across the surface. The magnetometers spiked. The audio recorders captured a frequency that shouldn't exist, a low, resonant hum that vibrated the tape reels themselves, causing the playback to warp, to slow, to stretch the sound into something unrecognizable. The younger investigator stepped back. "It's not reflecting," he whispered. "It's recording." Teresa felt it before she understood it. The vibration in her palms wasn't just traveling through the wall, it was traveling through her, into her. The hum in her bones matched the frequency in the plaster. The cold in her chest matched the temperature of the fluid that seeped from the cracks. She wasn't just listening to Eric anymore, she was amplifying him. Her body was a conduit, a living antenna, a bridge between the structure and the sound. The older investigator noticed. "Teresa, can you feel it?" She nodded, couldn't speak. Her throat had closed around the words. "Does it hurt?" Another nod, then a shake. "Not pain." "Not exactly." "Pressure, fullness, a sense of being stretched, of being filled, of being used." The wall answered for her. 3 sharp raps, then 5, then 1, then 5. But the rhythm was different, slower, heavier, less like communication, more like possession. The bulge returned, larger this time. The plaster stretched further, thinned more, became almost transparent. The shape behind, it was clearer now, not just a silhouette. Details emerged. The texture of the burlap, the drip of the mud, the way the light in the hollow didn't illuminate. It consumed, it pulled the surrounding darkness inward, like a void wearing a shape. The younger investigator raised a camera, high-speed film, infrared capability. He focused, clicked, the flash erupted. The wall reacted, not with violence, with absorption. The light didn't reflect. It vanished, swallowed by the plaster, by the shape, by the hollow where a face should be. The camera's motor wind, the film advanced, but the image was already gone, captured, taken. The rapping started again, faster now, urgent, chaotic, not a code, a warning. "Don't look." Teresa understood. She turned away, pulled her hands from the wall. The vibration in her palms spiked, sharp, painful, like needles, like static, like a signal overloaded. The wall cracked. Not a hairline fracture, a deep, jagged split that ran from ceiling to floor, wide enough to see through, dark enough to hide anything. And from within that darkness, something moved, not a shape. A suggestion of movement, a ripple, a distortion, like heat haze on a summer road, except the room was cold, colder than before. The air thickened. became viscous, hard to breathe, hard to think. The younger investigator stepped forward. "Eric, we're documenting this. We're trying to understand. Help us see," the wall answered. "Not with raps, not with sound, with a voice. Not through the air, through the floor, through the wood, through their bones. You already see." The words weren't spoken. They were felt. Implanted. Direct. Unavoidable. Every person in the room heard them, felt them, understood them. Not in English, not in Welsh. Meaning, beer. Unfiltered, immediate. The distortion in the crack widened, stretched, became a portal, not to another place, to another state, to the space between sound and silence, between pressure and release, between the living and the structure that holds them. And from within that space, Eric emerged, not fully, not physically, partially. A hand, wrapped in burlap, soaked in mud, dripping that same dark, viscous fluid. It reached through the crack, into the room, into the air, into the space where they stood. It didn't grab, didn't strike, didn't threaten. It pointed. At Teresa. "You called me." The words echoed in her mind, in her chest, in her bones. She remembered. The first night, the curiosity, the whisper, the question. Who's there? She had opened the door, not with a key, with attention, with belief, with the simple human need to be heard. You remembered me. She had. Not consciously, not intentionally, but in the quiet moments, in the dreams, in the space between thoughts. She had felt him, waiting, listening, calling, and she had answered. "Now I am here." That the hand receded. The distortion faded. The crack sealed itself, not with plaster, with something else. Something dark, something wet, something that pulsed. The room returned to normal. Except it didn't. The air was still thick, the temperature still low, the vibration still constant, and the knowledge still present. Eric wasn't trapped. He wasn't buried. He wasn't a ghost. He was a frequency, a resonance, a pattern in the structure of reality that had learned to speak. And Teresa was his voice. The investigators packed their equipment, slowly, carefully, without speaking. They had recorded something, captured something, understood something, but not enough, never enough. The older man paused at the door, looked back at Teresa. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "It never is. But you're not alone. Document everything. Trust your senses. And if it changes, if it asks for more, call us." He left. The younger man followed. The door clicked shut. The lock turned. The house was silent again, but the silence was different now. It wasn't empty. It was waiting that night. The predictions stopped. The raps ceased. The vibrations faded. The house felt normal. Too normal. Teresa lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The water stain had changed again. The face was gone, replaced by a single word, carved into the plaster from the inside out. Listen. She didn't need to press her ear to the wall to hear it. The word wasn't sound. It was presence, constant, low, steady, like a heartbeat, like a hum, like a frequency tuned to her bones. She understood then. Eric wasn't leaving. He wasn't done. He was just adjusting. Learning the shape of her life, the rhythm of her breath, the pattern of her thoughts. He was integrating, and she was letting him, not because she had to, because she wanted to, because the silence without him felt emptier than the silence with him, because the cold without him felt colder than the cold with him, because the loneliness without him felt heavier than the presence with him. She closed her eyes, listened, and whispered into the dark. "Eric?" 5 taps. "Yes." "Stay." 1 tap. "Always." The integration didn't happen overnight. It seeped, like damp through plaster, like cold through floorboards, like a frequency tuning itself to a living nervous system. Teresa went back to school, ate meals, laughed at her siblings, did homework. But the house never felt empty again. The radiator ticked in rhythm. The floorboards hummed when she walked. The walls held warmth long after the heating shut off. Eric wasn't a visitor. He was a resident, a quiet one, a patient one, a presence that learned the shape of her routine and settled into the gaps between breaths, between footsteps, between the silence and the sound. The investigators returned 3 weeks later, not with cameras. with calibrated tape decks, magnetometers, seismic sensors. They didn't ask questions. They set up equipment, sat in stillness, waited. The raps began at 2:14 p.m. Not random, structured. 3 strikes, pause, 5, pause, 1, pause, 5, A, E, A, V. Older investigator pressed a hand to the wall, felt the vibration, checked the magnetometer. The needle swung, steady, rhythmic, matching the frequency of the taps exactly. He looked at Teresa. It's synchronized with you, he said quietly. Your pulse, your breathing, it's locking on. She nodded. Didn't speak. She didn't need to. The wall answered for her. A new sequence. Faster. Cleaner. More confident. Dot 5. Taps. E. 9 taps. I. 3 taps. C. 5 taps. C. 3 taps. D. 21 taps. U. 3 taps. C. 5 taps. E. 8 taps. H. 3 taps. C. 3 taps. D. Dot. The older man frowned, decoded it slowly. Eric, success? He shook his head. No, that's not right. He tried again. Rearranged the letters in his head. Looked at Teresa. It's not spelling a word. It's spelling a response. To what? The younger investigator pulled out a deck of cards. Standard poker deck. Back's uniform. Faces hidden. He shuffled. Fanned them face down on the coffee table. Eric, if you can see this, if you can read it, tell us the top card. Not with words. With taps. Sue first. Rank second. Silence. The air grew still. The magnetometer needle trembled. The recorders spun. Teresa sat quietly, hands in her lap, palms flat against her knees, feeling the hum, the pull. The connection. 3 taps. Spades. 10 taps. Jack. 3 taps. C. 8 taps. A. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 3 taps. C. 8 taps. A. 3 taps. C. 8 taps. A dot. The older man turned the top card. Jack of spades. His breath caught. He flipped the next. Ace of hearts. Queen of diamonds. King of clubs. He fanned the entire deck. 7 cards. 7 taps. 7 matches. Perfect. No hesitation. No error. The younger investigator packed the deck away slowly. We can explain probability, he murmured. We can explain suggestion. We can explain subconscious cues. But not this. Not at this accuracy. Not with this consistency. Not when the card is hidden from everyone in the room. They ran the test again. Hidden card. Teresa couldn't see it. The investigators couldn't see it. The deck was face down. The room was still. The rapping began. Slower. Deliberate. 10 taps. Jack. 3 taps. C. 8 taps. A. 5 taps. E. 9 taps. I. 3. TAPS. 8 taps. A. 3 taps. C. 8 taps. A dot. Jack of spades. Again. The older investigator closed. His notebook. Voice steady but quiet. The society will publish this. Anonymized, coded. They'll verify the tapes. They'll cross-reference the logs. They'll search for natural causes. They'll look for fraud. They'll find none. Because this isn't fraud. It's a pattern, a resonance. Something that learned to speak through structure, through sound, through a girl who listened. They left that evening, took the recorders, left the magnetometers, promised to return with acoustic engineers, with physicists, with historians who would search parish registers, burial grounds, census records, land deeds. They would look for Eric Eads, Eric Waters, Eric anything. They would find nothing. No birth, no death, no marriage, no grave, no obituary, no mention in any archive. Just a name spoken through plaster. A frequency trapped in a house. A presence that refused to be cataloged. The family stayed for 11 more months. Not because they were unafraid. Because the fear had changed shape. It wasn't sharp anymore. It was heavy, constant, familiar. Eric's predictions grew less frequent, less urgent. The raps softened. The vibrations settled into a steady, low hum that matched the house's settling noises. The walls stopped cracking. The fluid stopped seeping. The presence didn't vanish. It adapted. It learned to live quietly, to breathe slowly, to wait. It stopped spelling words, started matching rhythms. When Teresa studied, the taps mimicked her pencil scratching. When she slept, they matched her breathing. When she cried, they echoed the rhythm of her tears. It wasn't haunting. It was harmonizing. When they finally moved, they didn't pack. Everything. Left behind a sofa, a rug, a cracked mirror, a stack of school books. Teresa took only her coat, her shoes, a notebook with a blank cover. She didn't look back at the house. She didn't need to. The vibration in her palms had faded to a whisper, a memory, a frequency tuned to a different channel. But it was still there. Always would be. A ghost in the nervous system. A hum in the blood. A quiet knowing that the walls remember what people forget. The new owners never complained, never heard raps, never felt cold spots, never saw cracks form from the inside out. The house settled into silence. Ordinary, quiet, unremarkable. Until 3 years later, a different girl, 12 years old, pressed her ear to the bedroom wall and heard a single tap. Then another, a sequence, waiting to be answered. The cycle doesn't end. It transfers. It waits for attention, for belief. For the simple human act of listening to the dark and asking who's there. The Society for Psychical Research published the report in 1974, 47 pages, coded names, anonymized addresses, technical appendices, audio waveform analysis, magnetometer logs, witness testimonies. Conclusion: the evidence suggests an intelligent, responsive phenomenon, operating through structural vibration. Natural causes were ruled out. Fraud was ruled out. Mass suggestion was ruled out. The source remains unidentified. The mechanism remains unexplained. The entity, if it can be called that, appears to persist beyond physical occupation of the location. It does not haunt a place. It haunts a frequency. They buried the report in a university archive, locked the original tapes in a climate-controlled vault, filed the case under unresolved anomalous acoustic phenomena. No headlines, no documentaries, no viral coverage, just a file number, a stack of reels, and a name that still echoes in the static between stations, in the pause between radio broadcasts, in the space where the wind drops and the house settles and the floorboards groan for no reason. If you press your ear to the plaster of number 42 today, if you hold your breath, if you listen past the settling timber, past the distant pipes, past the hum of modern life, you might hear it, faint, deliberate. Waiting. 3 taps. Pause. 5 taps. Pause. 1 tap. Pause. 5 taps. It doesn't ask for belief. It doesn't demand proof. It just waits for someone to notice, to answer, to listen. And if you do, it will spell your name. Ambient bed fades in. Soft piano. Distant rain. Subtle tape hiss. Voice warm, close mic, intimate. Hey, you made it too. The end. That takes a certain kind of quiet courage. I'm glad you stayed. If you're new here, this is Anti-Logic Blood Opera. We don't chase trends. We don't dramatize for clicks. We pull the archived cases out of storage, the ones that don't fit, the ones that refuse to be explained. The real files that history tried to shelf. If this story settled into your bones the way it settled into ours, consider subscribing. Not because I'm asking, but because you're already the kind of person who wonders what's in the walls when the house goes quiet. You already know how to listen. You already know the difference between noise and signal. This is where we decode them. Together. Drop a comment below with the name you'd want the walls to spell. Or tell us what frequency you hear when the silence stretches too long. We read everyone. We respond to the ones that match the pattern. Stay warm, keep your ears open, and I'll see you in the next tape.